Bartholomew and the Oobleck is a story about a king, King Derwin of the Kingdom of Did, who had a problem being content with what he had. It seems that he had grown angry with, of all things, the sky. Every year in the spring, the sky produced rain. In the summer, it sent down sunshine. In the autumn, it made fog. And in the winter, of course, it made snow. King Derwin had grown bored and he wanted something new. So the king called all of his magicians to get to work on the problem, and they did. And the next morning, the king awoke to the sight of little green sputters of Oobleck falling from the sky. He was so excited that he decided to declare a holiday, and so he ordered the bell ringer to ring the bell. But the bell wouldn't ring because it was covered with sticky green Oobleck. And the trumpeter couldn't sound the alarm because his trumpet was clogged up with Oobleck. The Oobleck sounded like a good idea, but soon it caused more trouble than what it was worth. The entire kingdom of Did was completely gummed up. And so the king's page, Bartholomew, wisely pointed out that the whole disaster could be put to an end if the king would just admit that he was wrong. But at first the king couldn't do it. He was too mighty and proud to admit that he was wrong. And Bartholomew looked him straight in the eye and said, "You may be a mighty king, but you're sitting in Oobleck up to your chin, and so is everyone else in your land. And if you won't even say you're sorry, you're no sort of king at all." Finally, the king, reduced to sobbing, admitted that Bartholomew was right. He said the magic words, and the Oobleck disappeared. And all was well within the kingdom again. And all of a sudden, rain, sun, fog, and snow didn't seem so bad anymore. The physical act of saying "I'm sorry" is simple. It takes only about 1 second. It's not a tongue twister, and the words are easy to pronounce, but if we are sincere about the words, then the feelings that well up within us when we apologize are painful feelings. We feel grief for hurting another person. We feel shame because we know ourselves to be better people than the way we have acted. We feel remorse for maybe starting a chain of unpleasant events. And since we tend to avoid feelings of grief, shame, and remorse, and the tears that are often associated with those feelings, we also avoid saying words like "I'm sorry," which we associate with those feelings. In fact, some of us have gotten so good at avoiding the word, and we spend so much of our time avoiding grief, avoiding shame, and avoiding remorse that we begin to feel pretty good about ourselves. We may even think that we're better than we really are. And the word that our Bible uses for this is exalted. People who feel this way about themselves have exalted themselves. But the moment we say the words, as soon as we say "I'm sorry," then we begin the process of cutting through all the fluff we like to decorate ourselves with. "I'm sorry" is the first step in the journey that ends in freedom. Because whether you realize it or not, the person who spends her or his life avoiding those words or avoiding the attitude that goes along with the words, in church speak, the person who avoids confession and repentance, is in fact enslaved. Have you ever sat back and watched people who never admit that they are wrong? We all have friends like that, don't we? We all know people who seem to think that they are perfect. People who have never taken the blame for anything, but are quick to find someone else to blame for a problem. Those people are enslaved. Most of their lives are spent rationalizing why they behaved the way they did, or why said the things that they did. And most of the remainder of their life is spent finding a person or circumstance beyond their control to take the blame for their behavior.